Something about you feels so different. Yeah, you mess me up inside. It's like your energy was kissing my soul back to life, was living. Now it feels like every part of me is died. Yeah, every message that I send you, you just leave them all on red. Now every part of me is hurting, cross my heart. I don't deserve this. Loved you just for you to haunt me in the end. Yeah, you're gone.
Hey, what's up guys, Christian here and welcome back to another PC build. In my hands are both new hardware for the latest generation of Intel processors, which is the 13th generation or much known as Raptor Lake, along with the MSI Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi DDR4. Yes, even the new Intel CPUs still support DDR4. So magbibuild tayo ng system with these two components along with some other parts na ipapakita namin mamaya. And we'll end this video with some benchmarks with the build. But first, we should talk about the parts that we're using. First is yung CPU natin, which is the new Intel Core i5-13600K. So, unlock chip ito. The 13600K is a 14-core 12-thread chip with 6 P-cores and 8 E-cores, with a base frequency of around 2.6 to 3.5 GHz for the E and P cores, respectively, with a max turbo frequency of 5.1 GHz. It also uses the LGA 1700 socket, which means compatible din ito with the previous C690 boards after a BIOS update, and also compatible with the motherboard that we're using for this build. Speaking of motherboard, here's the MSI Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi DDR4, and clearly as the model name indicates, it uses DDR4 memory instead of the newer DDR5. And I think okay pa rin na move yon in favor of Intel considering that the DDR5 is still expensive sa ngayon. But do they have DDR5 motherboards naman kung sakaling gusto mo na gumamit ng DDR5? The MSI MAG Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi DDR4 is equipped with a lot of features, gaya ng 18-stage 16+1+1 duet rail power system with 90 amp smart power stage, ensuring that high-end processors can be powered sufficiently. Also, MSI's core and memory boost technology, meron siyang 2.5 gigabit LAN, Bluetooth 5.2, and Wi-Fi 6E, and PCIe Gen 5 support for the PCIe x16 slots, so devices like GPU can benefit from blazing speeds and bandwidth. There's also USB 3.2 Gen 2 x2, 20 gigabit support, Audio Boost 5, which features high-performance audio processors and high-quality capacitors, as well as server-grade 6-layer PCB made by 2-ounce thick-end copper. Also steel armors and extended heatsinks with high-quality thermal pads. In terms of design, the motherboard features a monochrome aesthetic from the PCB hanggang sa mga heatsinks, consistent with the Tomahawk series. So madali siya i-pair with other components na color neutral if you want a certain theme. So for our RAM or memory, we have the Gskill Trident Royale 32GB 3600MHz kit, and on the graphics card we have the MSI GeForce RTX 3080 Ti Suprim X. Cooling the CPU is the MSI MAG Coreliquid C360 all-in-one liquid cooler, and powering it will be the MSI A750GF 750W power supply. And for our boot drive, we have the MSI Spatium M470 1TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD. And lastly, housing all of these components will be the MSI MPG Velox 100p airflow, which has these vents at the front providing generous airflow on the system. Now that I'm done talking about these parts, here's a quick build montage, then let's go straight to the benchmarks.
I fight so hard, but I can't fight my way out. Lost all dimension and time. Looking at what's in my mind. And this goes down.
So for our testing, we have here 4 games, and I tested this both with the default out-of-the-box configurations as well as the game boost overclocking mode and XMP enabled, and also on both 1080p and 1440p resolutions all at the maximum settings with graphical enhancements such as ray tracing and DLSS turned off. First is on the default settings, so no overclocks, which would be representative of the out-of-the-box performance in most cases. Here we see that CSGO breached over 700 FPS average in 1080p using the Workshop benchmark and over 540 FPS in 1440p. So Cyberpunk naman, we got an average of 127 FPS in 1080p and 89 FPS in 1440p. So more than playable considering that we are at the maximum settings available. F1 2022 yielded us an average of 262 FPS and 1080p, 216 FPS in 1440p, and Forza Horizon 5 gave us an average of 124 FPS in 1080p and 112 FPS in 1440p. And when we enabled MSI's Game Boost one-click overclocking mode in the BIOS, also the XMP for our RAM kit, I think it is safe to say that there's obviously some difference in the performance. Although hindi ganun kalaki ang difference, especially on titles gaya ng F122 and Forza Horizon 5, which is technically more GPU heavy, but both memory and CPU performance uplift can still help. And lastly, we also tested Cinebench R23, so here's the score on both single core and multi-core performance, both with default and Game Boost overclocking mode. Regarding thermals naman, medyo napansin ko lang na sa CPU-focused games like yung CSGO, may tendency na nag-thermal throttle yung CPU natin on the times na nagbo-boost siya on its maximum turbo frequency. Although it's only at the P cores lang naman, which is understandable. I think hindi ganun kalaki ang performance impact since nagsasettle din naman siya on the average temperature of around 65 to 70 degrees at most during my game testing. Noong sa Cinebench ko lang siya nakita na nag-hit ng around 100 plus degrees Celsius max temperature, though the average temps during the test is around 70 degrees Celsius lang. So there you go guys, ito lang po yung MSI Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi DDR4 build featuring the Intel Core 13th Gen Raptor Lake Core i5-13600K na CPU. So there you have it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ako nga pala sa Xtian. So like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you on my next PC build.